Well, we said a couple of times already, this is a special Shabbat. We have some of our youngest friends and their families are going to have a special dinner after our service. So that's kind of a nice thing. Yay. And we also have kind of a joining along with other congregations throughout the continent, really, for Jewish Disability Awareness, Acceptance, and Inclusion Shabbat. It used to be Jewish Disability Shabbat. Then it became Jewish Disability and Inclusion Shabbat. Now, because we're inclusive, it is Jewish Disability Awareness, Acceptance, and Inclusion Shabbat. I had it written down. And I kind of like that. I like that we're learning. I like that we're figuring things out. And our inclusion committee came up with a really sweet way to talk about inclusion. And we've done aspects about with folks who live with disability. And we've talked about mental health challenges before. Tonight, there's going to be another kind of a focus. And it's the needs sometimes we have as we get older. And as I was thinking about what to share and kind of share a little bit of a frame before we have a number of people that are going to be doing brief sharing of their own on lots of different topics and issues, I was thinking that physicians and midwives often help with childbirth. And we know that people who work in hospice helps with dying, but there isn't an easy framework when it comes to eldering, for growing older, for maturing. There's kind of a vacuum. Sometimes we have people around us that support us, and sometimes not. And where does a community come and take place? And it's not just that, because our wider society, lots of folks in our community will figure out to do everything they possibly can in order to, in quotes, stay younger. Creams and lotions, Botox, anything to make us look younger, so much so that there's an ideal situation when nobody can tell who's the parent and who's the child. That's kind of like the ideal for some people, and it sounds a little bit appealing at times, but it perpetuates a concern I have about what it means to grow older. Not getting old, but growing older. And we all are. And there's nothing you can do about that except to grow. Except to grow. But I think in America, sometimes it's not so easy. We're kind of challenged by it. In some communities or societies, aging is like a plague. And I feel very badly about that because in Jewish tradition, it isn't something to avoid or to be concealed. Aging is something to be actually coveted. It is a place of honor in Jewish tradition. But we sometimes forget about that. There was even a recent article of a pastor who said that boomers and an older generation should get out of the churches and make way for a younger generation. Check in about this person's contract, right? Clergy of all denominations, all houses of worship said, how could you say such a thing? Congregations aren't just for the young, and they're also not just for the older. If we want a real congregation, not just a building with a sign out front, who comes to our table? Who gets to find their place here? How do we figure out how to make room, not one or the other? In the book of Leviticus, it says, stand up before a white head and honor the face of one matured in wisdom and revere your God, I am the eternal. In Psalms, it'll say, teach us to number our days so that we may gain a heart of wisdom. In Job, it says, with age comes wisdom, and length of days brings understanding. I'm holding out hope. So this is Inclusion Shabbat, and we recognize that we, as a society, need to do better. And it is Inclusion Shabbat, and we, as a congregation, need to do better, because this is a sacred community. And in order to invite God in, we need to make sure we get to be present for one another. So this is going to be about aging and the needs of older adults, helping us to have some conversations, grow some awareness, help us to think and reflect, and build the community that we envision. I'm very grateful to our Inclusion Committee who have come together to figure out how to make our congregation more inclusive and to help us to keep on learning. So we have 4 different groups are going to come up. I'm going to tell you, do you know the order already? They do? Okay, so they're going to come up themselves 2 by 2. This is not about Noah. I came out a little, but we have 2 by 2 are going to come forward and do some sharing. We will help you with the microphones. I have a microphone down here, so you can just kind of come right by. If you notice, our table shifts. We have, for those that might need to read from the Torah or read at all with a microphone, we have another level here, so we make sure this table is for everyone. So we'll start with David and Bob. Everybody's going to introduce themselves and share what it is that they have to share. Okay? I'm going to bring this one over here. This one on? Yeah. All right, sir.
Fine. I'm Bob Schulsinger. I'm a longtime member of Har Hashem. In 1985, my mother died, so I went to say Kaddish for her every week, and then I started to come every week after the 11 months for the Kaddish. So at that time, we didn't have Torah study in the morning. It was only for bar and bat mitzvahs in the morning, so I attended all the bar and bat mitzvahs. Some of these kids were very good, and the ones who were not, their parents were so proud of them, and that's nice. That's really nice. That's right. So, but about 11 years ago, we had Torah study in the morning, and I would come to that, but then I had my stroke about 10 years ago, and I couldn't drive anymore, and David Bernstein saw that I wasn't coming to Torah study for months and months and months, and he says, well, he said, what has happened to Bob? Well, I couldn't drive anymore, and then David offered to take me to Torah study, and it's really wonderful.
So Bob's going to, can you hear me okay here?
No.
Oh, that's much better. Bob's going to just kind of chime in as we go. The issue that for me has been real clear all along, and the goal here is really to look at what we can do to really make sure. I mean, that we wouldn't. Ultimately, what we would like is that anyone who wants to participate at Har Hashem in any activities whatsoever will not have any transportation-related barrier to doing so. And for that, we need people to really step up on both sides, for people to tell us they have a need, and for us to have a cadre of folks who can help meet that need. The issues, basically what you need is relationship 101 skills. You basically just need to be sensitive, and you also need to be courteous. And that's kind of the way it is, I would say, in general in life. But I think people feel that there's this, all of these credentials or care that you have to take. And I think it's really just, you know, recognizing that someone who has some particular issues is a person. And it's just, it's knowing that that's so important. It isn't magic, it's just really being keyed in to the person who you're assisting. It's important to ask what the person needs in general, not make any assumptions, and to give the person, in this case the good Dr. Schulzinger, the dignity that we would want to always have ourselves, and to be able to say, Bob, what do you need? Do you want me to help you in, you know, do you want me to pull your arm? Do you want me to do this or do that to help you up in some way? When you've been doing it as long as the good doctor and I know, you know, I know him and I know what to do. So that initially you do need to, you know, develop an arrangement with someone where they're telling you a lot about what they want. But once that's done, it's done. And as Nate Leaf saw today, we have it down to a science in terms of getting in and out of the car and those kinds of things. So for some people, a steady hand is all they need, really, in terms of if they can't drive anymore, just helping them in and out of a car, and certainly providing a steady hand from the parking lot into the building. Beyond, and for others, there's a whole continuum. And for others, there's a lot more assistance that's necessary. And the other thing is that as a volunteer, you just need to be aware of what you're physically capable of, so that you don't get into a situation where you can't physically do what needs to be done. And that's something, again, that can be negotiated and looked at. And I'm sure there are people who basically are going to need a ride and just being steadied as they come in, and then others who are going to have more. And then, again, it's taking your cue from them. They know what they need. And an example is Bob knowing exactly where his legs have to be placed as we start to bring him out of the car, and how much of an assist he requires. And there are times when I'll start to do something and Bob will say, no, 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 you know, and he's got it. And, you know, people want to do what they can. And sometimes that changes over time, but basically it all comes down again to checking it out with the person and taking your cue from them. And the other thing I would say is whatever you do in a respectful manner, taking your cue from the person. And what you don't want is any surprises for anybody. You know, if somebody like Bob is going to be really concerned about falling or anything like that, you really need to be in a position to just help them balance. And what is it going to take to do that? And, you know, Bob and I have talked about the fact that what concerns him the most is falling, that he really needs to have a sense that he's in control of his balance. So what I try to do is, I've never been a good football player. So this is my way of being on the offensive line in football. And what I do is get behind him, and he's my quarterback. And what I'm doing is I'm just really there to protect him and make sure that he doesn't fall or anything like that. So, you know, I don't want people to feel intimidated about helping in this way. It's just a matter of knowing yourself and really being sensitive and tuned into the person, and then doing it. And I got to tell you, it is such a reciprocal process. As much as Bob gets from me, I get from him, and more. So I think it's really important to come forward if you can, because it's a great experience. You know, Bob's politically is much more astute now than he was when we met. And, you know, that's because of this arrangement.
Thank you. Wonderful.
Bob, anything else you want to say?
We're going to have our next folks.
All right, in other words, that's it. Questions at the end?
No, we have a few people that are going to do some brief sharing, And then, we'll be around during the Oneg.
I think he meant brief.
Yes,
Share.
he did. There you go. Okay.
And I've got my phone, just because that's all right. Okay, hi, Shabbat Shalom. I'm Sarah Jane Cohen,
I'm Bill Cohen.
and we've been members here for 47, 48 years. Our issue is mobility issues in the congregation. The good things about Har Hashem, first of all, is all of you. There are no steps into the building. There are some large bathrooms where people with walkers or wheelchairs, whatever, can actually maneuver. There is designated seating in the back, but we're sitting in the front tonight for handicaps, so people in a wheelchair or with a walker have room, and the person with them has room. They have quick access to the bathroom. There's a ramp up to the bima. Oh, I just lost my notes. Hang on. What did I do? Oh, God. I think I lost them. Anyway, sorry. There's a ramp up to the bima. There are issues about the downstairs classrooms, but we've never had to go down there for anything, so it hasn't been a personal issue. The bathrooms in the other building, and in the other wing are very unfriendly to people with disabilities. And the other thing that I will mention, and then Bill's going to talk about something a little different, is that it would be very helpful to have automatic door openers to the entrance to the building and to these big restrooms here, because people don't usually go to the restroom with an escort, and it can be really hard to get the door open. And if people come here, like by Lyft or by Uber, where they don't have a chauffeur who's going to participate in whatever the activity is here, it's really hard to get those front doors open. So, okay, go.
Yeah, just one comment. I think they make bathroom doors unreasonably heavy and hard to open. Have you all noticed the same thing? I don't understand it, but it's true. Okay, so Sarah Jane is correct. In this congregation, people go out of their way to help you. It's marvelous. You feel like you're one of everybody. But there's one particular area that you may not realize, which is troubling for somebody who has mobility issues. And the thing that is troubling is you begin to feel very isolated, even though you're amongst a whole bunch of friends that you've known for years. And what is that? Stand-up conversation is common to most group gatherings, such as the Oneg we're going to have after services tonight. When conversation is mostly done standing in small groups, mobile challenged folks usually wind up sitting by themselves. A few people will sit with them for a real conversation. I don't know if you're psychologically worried you won't be able to get out of that seat once you sit down, because when you're up, you're floating amongst a whole bunch of groups. You want to meet a lot of people. Shut up. This is how I embarrass you. All right.
Sorry.
So, I recommend that the Inclusion Committee study this problem and become aware and look at how these gatherings take place and what happens, and come up with some ideas and solutions that we can all become closer and not have to talk to our shadows.
Good.
Thank you.
And I found my notes. I recently deleted, but I restored them. I have to say, people are generally wonderful. They offer help getting in and out of the car. They offer help with Bill's walker, but I do that myself. For Harmony and Hops, Har Hashem, because of the Inclusion Committee, they contacted us and said, do you want an electric scooter to get around the whole south building, lawn area? And I said yes, knowing that Bill would think this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. It was a very modest cost. I mean, we paid for it. We didn't want Har Hashem to pay for it. But Har Hashem really goes out of its way to include people and accommodate people and find ways to make us all feel at home. There's still a little work to do, and that's why we're here tonight. Thank you.
This is our next one. There we go.
Well, thank you, everybody, for allowing us to speak to you tonight. I'm Stan Goldberg.
And I'm Vicki Yucha.
My wife, Vicki Yucha. And I've been around for a while. Let's say, hi, Bill, Sarah Jane. Let's say since 3 years before there was a congregation, and I'm one of the founding members. I'm 91 years old, and I'm in pretty good shape with most things, but like everybody near my age, there are a few problems. One of the problems has to do with hearing, and that is my main concern tonight. I'll put the glasses on. The rabbi, where are you? There he is the only one whose words I can easily make out. With most of all of the others, the lack of either volume or the timbre of their voices makes things very, very difficult for me. I especially have a problem with the sounds from female. That's a long time ago. Female voices. The timbre is such that my ears just will not accept without a lot of help. One of the things that I desire to go to services, no. When I know I'm going to go to services and I can't hear what people are telling us, the congregation, it puts quite a damper and it loses my enthusiasm. So anything at all that can be done to help me, and I'm speaking for everybody with my problem, is surely going to keep me wanting to come to services. Maybe not all the time, but more than we do now. Any kind of background noise greatly reduces my ability to hear. If there's more than one person speaking, I have a problem because everything dissolves into just a lot of noise. Dinner with friends at a noisy restaurant is particularly difficult for me. I can talk to one person at a time if they're standing next to my good ear. This ear is for appearances only. But in a noisy restaurant, it's almost impossible. A very few auditoriums have special sound systems that are really helpful, but very, very few. And it's such a joy to find myself into such an auditorium where I can actually hear what's going on. Movies have headsets to help people like me, but they're almost useless. We go back time and time again, let us have a better set. They give us another set. Once in a while, I'll get one that really works, but not too often. Depending on the sound system, sitting close to the front is helpful. We are sitting in the front tonight, and it helps a little bit. But there has to be a lot more available to make the situation easier for people like me.
Move over to that one.
Move over there. Okay.
If I move to his right, I'm sitting near the ear that is for appearances only. And so I just want to say that, well, there's so much technology to help today, right? And you'd think it would be pretty simple. But we go to the movies, and one time they gave him a translation for people with visual impairments. So he heard the whole movie narrated, but not the dialogue. And the other times we just go in Boulder, and they give him the headset, and another movie comes on, not the one we're watching. Or the battery's dead. And, you know, there are only so many times you're going to walk up and down the thing in the dark, so that's, and some heat just went on, so I can hear the fan, and that will mess things up as well. We're sitting off to the side. I couldn't hear Holly sing tonight. So living with somebody who has hearing loss, to me, is sort of, affects the whole family. It's not just the person with the hearing loss. I feel like I'm living with autocorrect, that I say things and I get responses that are not related at all to what I said. So,
What did you say?
and that's if I'm lucky.
Say
So
again.
he says, "What hurts?" I said, "Nothing hurts." I said, "No, that worked, not that hurt." And so I have to go back and think of what I said, and it makes conversations, everything takes longer, and it takes a lot of effort. So I would say sitting closer to the speaker, sitting closer to the speakers is sometimes good, but you have to know which way the speakers are facing. You have to talk into the microphone, and every time you have to say, "Can you hear me?" Because with every speaker, the microphone and the amplification is going to be different. You need to check the volume in different parts of the room before the service starts. So you need somebody up here and somebody in the corners and somebody off on the sides to say, "Can you still hear me? Is it loud enough?" Music lyrics. Music, because it has the music and the lyrics, much, much, much harder to amplify clearly. Deeper voices for many people are easier to hear than higher voices. If you're talking to somebody with a hearing loss, try and stand in front of them where they can see your face. Don't whisper, don't talk quickly, but also don't shout all the time because that's exhausting and it's not natural. And ask, "Did you hear me?" I have to check in, otherwise I say many things that I never knew about, and I go many places that I never knew I was going. So we always have to check and say, "Did you hear me?" Also, directionality is affected with hearing loss. Stan can't tell where the sound is coming from, and so we play Marco Polo at home. Where are you? Here. Where's here? Here. So you get the idea. Open captions are not a wonderful solution. It's very hard to read quickly and listen at the same time. And then you're asking people to think and respond quickly. So I'm not a big fan of that. And if you don't ask, you don't know. We've been to many events, dinners, movies, etc. And Stan's, he's polite most of the time, and he nods and smiles, and we leave and he says, "I didn't hear a word." think how isolating and frustrating that is. Some people just don't speak up and tell you. Not being able to hear is very isolating and very lonely. As we've said, background noise, hum of conversation, traffic, fans, heat, air conditioning, all of that can get in the way. And sometimes it's just too much effort to say, can you hear me? I didn't hear you, can you say it again? So, thank you.
Our last one.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? No. Okay. I have to be that close?
You're good.
I'm good? I'm good, okay. I'm Rima, I had a look. I'm Rima Manis. Okay. I normally talk moving, and I have to take this with me. I'm Rima Manis and a member of Congregation Har Hashem for over 25 years. And I'd like to talk about needing emotional support while aging alone. We come into this world as helpless infants, totally dependent upon others to take care of us. By the time we reach adulthood, middle-aged, hopefully we're independent. We're surrounded by family, by friends, by co-parishioners, by co-workers, spouses, living our lives while sharing a rich, supportive network. Guess what? Life changes. Divorces happen. People die. We move, they move, family and friends get sick. We have health limitations. The emotional support network we were very much a part of starts shrinking when we need it the most. Suddenly, the realization hits. We have become senior citizens, and we're all alone. That, let me tell you, is quite sobering. Well, Har Hashem recognized this dilemma and started a group called Community as Family. Approximately 2 years ago, the new group issued a welcoming statement, and I'd like to read that. Quote, "Are you 55 or older, living alone and distant from family? Har Hashem can be an extended family to those of you who might need more information, assistance, and emotional support as you age alone. We meet monthly, providing resources, shared conversation, and community." End quote. Well, I have been a member of this group since its inception, so for the full 2 years. Currently, we're a small group, and at our meetings, we listen to each other non-judgmentally, we treat each other with respect and compassion, and we share wisdom based upon our life experience. Hopefully, we have gained some. In addition, we really look forward to seeing each other every month. So I encourage you to join Community as Family if what we do and who we are resonates with you. Thank you.
I'm Alan Schwartz. 4 years ago, almost to the date, another few weeks, my wife passed away. And that's after 50 years of marriage. And you can hear the emotion in my voice. It's very difficult. But one of the consequences is that I'm alone. I have children, and I have a grandchild, and son-in-laws, but they have their own lives. And I can't and do not expect them to take care of me. Thank God, my health is good, so I don't need that. But I do feel lonely. I have found refuge in Community as Family, in Refuat HaNefesh, a spiritual support group, and in Torah study. And this is good. but I need more. As a clinical social worker and a mental health practitioner, I can also tell everybody that loneliness, especially as we age, is at epidemic proportions. And we need to do more. We need to reach out to the community because there's something insidious about loneliness that makes people more and more passive. It kind of feeds on itself. And I have no doubt that there are members and non-members of the congregation who do not attend because they have become so passive. We need to reach out to them in order to proactively bring them in and help them overcome that loneliness. Thank you.
So, a couple of things. If we still have the little ones that are meeting for dinner, you guys should head over for the dinner. If you'd like, we're going to be concluding our service. I want to express gratitude to our friends who have shared so thoughtfully, so personally, so deeply. It's important for us to hear real stories, and I think it's really significant and really important. We're really grateful that you've shared your truths with us. I'm going to say two things. One is, for all of us, how can we think about how we can step forward and be at a table with other people, maybe those that we don't know? So think about that, and if you would like to figure out how to play a part here, let us know. We also want to make sure that you have all taken one of these little handouts. There's interesting things about who we're trying to be, and if you have a need, how to communicate to us. A prayer. May the one who blessed our ancestors, who came before us, bless all of you who enter into this new chapters in your life. The world was not formed by a single act. Each and every day, God renews the work of creation. May God grant you the strength to constantly renew your own creation. May you open your heart and mind to continuous growth, unexpected change, and the perpetual unsettling, liberating expansion of being alive. May you have the courage to name and sanctify this moment of change that is shaping your body and soul in the image of the divine. Blessed are you, El Shaddai, our God, renewing one of the world, who has kept us alive and sustained us and allowed us to reach this time of transformation. Let us all say, Amen. Let's conclude.